Welcome. So now we're going to be looking at trigonometric functions of any angle, and this is in your notes. So to define the trigonometric functions of any angle, including angles less than 0 degrees or greater than 360 degrees, we need a more general definition of an angle. We say that an angle is formed by rotating a ray, and so this ray is OA, just because O stands for origin, right? So we have a ray, and we rotate it, has the vertex at the origin. We always graph our angle next to the origin. It has the initial side on the x-axis, and we rotate that ray whatever number of degrees we want in whatever direction we want, so that the ray is in a new position denoted by the ray OB. So notice here we have an angle that's created by rays OA and OB. OA is the initial side, and it is always on the x-axis, and O here is always at the origin, right? So this is always the point 0, 0. Right? And when we rotate our ray, that is wherever we rotate it to, that's the terminal side. So the initial side is always on the x-axis. The terminal side is just however many degrees we want to rotate. Right? And we can rotate clockwise, and we can rotate counterclockwise. If we rotate counterclockwise, it is a positive angle. It's going in the positive direction. So this would be a positive angle. If we rotate counterclockwise, right, that would be a negative angle, right? Because it's going opposite the way the quadrants are labeled. And always the vertex of the angle is always at the origin. And this diagram is already in your notes. You can add, to the information if you want, but I think it's pretty much in the notes itself. Angle vocabulary, it's also in your notes. It's on the next page, and it was in the previous section as well. So the principal angle is the counterclockwise angle between the initial arm and the terminal arm of an angle in standard position. Its value is between 0 and 360 or 0 and 2 pi. Right? If our angle is negative or more than 360 degrees, then we're going to find a coterminal angle, and that will be the principal angle. The related acute angle is between the terminal arm of the angle in standard position and the x-axis when the terminal arm lies in quadrants 2, 3, or 4. This is our reference angle. Right? So here you have the diagram. This is our principal angle. Right? Our principal angle can be anything between 0 and 360 or 0 and 2 pi radians. Right? But to evaluate, we need a related acute angle that is between 0 and 90 degrees. Right? It's always between the terminal side of the angle, and the other side goes straight to the x-axis. Right? And so notice that the x-axis is going to form one side when we create a reference triangle, and the terminal side of our angle is going to create the other. Right? And now we can measure that new angle and use that angle, this right here, use that new angle to evaluate trig ratios for our angle, because that new angle is inside a triangle. And the values are going to be correct because it's going to have the values are going to have the correct sign. Right? So that triangle is in the second quadrant. The adjacent side, x, is going to be negative because that's the sign of the values of x in the second quadrant. Right? So that's how we can use that related triangle, which is created with our related angle, to evaluate angles that are greater than 90 degrees. So our reference angle, we evaluate angles that are less than 90 degrees. This acute angle formed by the terminal side of the angle and the horizontal axis, the x-axis. So that's how we're able to evaluate angles greater than 90 degrees and negative angles using a reference angle. Remember that your reference angle must be positive and must be acute. And acute is less than 90 degrees. Right? And so we're going to look at finding coterminal angles and finding reference angles, now that we've reviewed some vocabulary. So coterminal angles are just angles that have the same initial and terminal sides. If you're in degrees, they differ by 360 degrees. They can be 360 degrees more, or they can be 360 degrees less. And you have this diagram in your notes, but we have done 60 degrees before, so we'll do 60 degrees, but then let's do another one as well. All right, so just as a reminder, here's our 60-degree angle. If we want to have a coterminal angle that's more than 60 degrees, we would go around the circle and then continue, so the terminal side ended up in the exact same position. That green angle that I just drew in is going to be 60 degrees plus 360 degrees more. So this is, let's just call this coterminal angle 1 here, or positive 1, is going to be 60 plus 360, or 420 degrees. Notice it ends in the same spot because it went all the way around the circle and then it went 60 degrees more. We can also have a negative angle. Right? It's still going to start in this, on the x-axis, but now it goes in the negative direction. To find that angle, we would take our given angle and subtract 360 to find another coterminal angle. So negative 300 is also a coterminal to 60 degrees. It just goes in the opposite direction. Right? So if I go 60 degrees in the positive direction, or negative 300 degrees in the negative direction, I still go to the same spot. Right? I've still turned the terminal side of the angle is still going to be in the same location. Right? Let's do another one here. Right? So let's do an angle that is, I'll put it in this quadrant here. Right, so that one is going to be that one's 225 degrees. Right? And we won't graph this one because it's going to get a little busy in there. Unless you just want to graph this one, in which case I'll have to move. I guess I can move this. Oops, no I can't. It's attached. Well, I'll leave that one up there, the one that's in there. We'll also do 225 degrees. So for 225 degrees, a positive coterminal angle would be 225 plus 360, or 585 degrees. If we wanted a negative coterminal angle, we can subtract 360 degrees. And that's going to be negative 135 degrees. So whether I go 225 degrees in the positive direction, whether I go 585 degrees in the positive direction, or negative 135 degrees, or 135 degrees in the negative direction, either way, we're going to end up on that same angle there. All right? This same 225 degree angle. Okay? All right, so that's how you find coterminal angles in degrees. We can also find coterminal angles in radians. So two angles are coterminal if they have the same initial and terminal side. So for instance, the angles 0 and 2 pi are terminal, right? Here's where 0 and 2 pi lie. 2 pi just went around the circle before it got to the same location. You can find an angle that's coterminal to a given angle, theta, by adding or subtracting 2 pi. You have this in your notes. I'd like you to graph 3 pi fourths there. Let's find an angle that is positive, that's coterminal to 3 pi fourths, and that is negative and coterminal to 3 pi fourths. All right, so here's our first coterminal angle. All right, so let's call it angle number 1. We take our measurement, our given angle, and then we add 2 pi to it. Now, if it doesn't have the same denominator, just change the denominators to match. Right? So 2 pi is the same as 8 pi fourths. Right? Because if you divide 8 by 4, you'd get 2. Right? So 3 pi fourths plus 8 pi fourths is 11 pi fourths. Right? So this angle goes around the circle. before it lands in this very same spot. So that's an angle that's 11 pi fourths. If we go let me write that a little bit better there. To find an angle that is negative and coterminal to 3 pi fourths, we'll simply subtract 2 pi. So coterminal angle number 2 here would be 3 pi fourths minus 8 pi fourths, which would be negative 5 pi fourths. All right, so here, this one goes this direction. All right, so it still starts in that same location. It's kind of, my angle went a little bit off over the x-axis. It still starts in that same location. It just goes in the other direction. So this is an angle that is negative 5 pi fourths. Right. So next, I'll have you find some coterminal angles, and then we're going to look at finding reference angles. And I think that's where I want to stop. Yep. So we'll look at reference angles in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.